present.
Professor Dr. YAKUP, BULUT, Hujam, and other respected guest speakers and jury, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me, sir? Yes. Okay, can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay. Okay. With your permission, I'll start the presentation. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The establishment of institutions in the Ottoman Empire and the protection of the consumers lessons for the present time. I'll go with the slides. Before I'd like to highlight the main topics which I'll cover. So I'll go with the historical background, then the financial institutions, then the ethical and charitable institutions, then consumer protection, which is one of the main subject of the paper, and then lesson learned for the present world, and then finding and recommendation. So if I go with the main idea, what we will cover. So our focus in this research paper is on the establishment of different institutions, which will cover financial and religious institutions development and their benefits and protections for the consumers. We will see the combination of religious and financial institutions in the Ottoman Empire, and will evaluate how we can implement those traits and strategies to achieve economic progress in today's world with great harmony. The Hilik leading guild system, cash waqf model, Timar system, and ASSAM system, etc., are of the Ottomans contributed significantly to the uplifting of the society during the Ottoman Empire. Institutions and the effective functionings were responsible for economic development and socio-economic balance, which is very important. In this paper, we compare traditional and modern consumer protection measures, as well as characteristics and measures by the Ottoman consumer protection system that can be applied to modern consumer protection. We have so the lesson, the most important lesson learned, the importance of the instilling of a spirit of brotherhood among consumers and producers, as well as shifting our focus from maximizing our individualistic benefit to maximizing society and the planet's benefit. In order to achieve this efficiently, the Ottomans encouraged collaboration between the three parties involved. So the first one was consumer, the second was the suppliers, and the third was the government itself. Historically, if we see, the Ottomans were dominating the Black Sea, the Aegean Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, the Caspian Sea, and the Red Sea area. So this is, a huge area which they were covering. And after, these Seljuk Turks in the 11th century in Malazgirt in 1071, we have seen that, that area of Anatolia was open to the Muslims. And the Ottomans then were along with the two bordering empires, the Persian Empire and the Byzantine Empire. So we will, in this paper, we will focus on the three things in the three categories. Like the first one was the Gaza realm in expansion. I'm calling it expansion from 1299 to 1585. Then consolidation, and then transformation. So these are the three stages of the Ottoman realm, and I'll focus on the consolidation and transformation. I'll not call it a failure at the end. No, it was not a failure, but it was expanding, and they were changing positive. So the systems or the institutions developed in the Ottoman Empire was the Ahalic system or the Ukhuwa, which was transformed to the guild system then. Then we have Hizba system, we have Isham, Malikani system, Timar system, Iltizam, like the Agri tax collection system, which was, helping, helping the government or the armies. And then banking system, and then the Ottoman's public debt administration, and then the Tanzimat reforms at the end. So we will go one by one, but I want to see, the overall picture of the consumer protection if we compare it with the new world now and the Ottomans. So we can see that, from the Professor Kargul 2011's research, we can see that, in today's organization of industries and commerce, but at that time, the Ottomans were solving the common issues of the industrialist and tradesmen through the Ahalic system. So there was a solution for that. And workers and employees syndicates nowadays, and it was regulated in the Ottomans, the relationship of the workers and employees in the Ahalic system. Competition board these days, and also we have an Ahalic system how to prevent the monopolies, and commodities and services standards institutions these days. But at that time we have Hisba in the Qadi system who were inspecting the qualities and inequalities of the commodities and services. Then consumer protection institutions, and there were an Ahalic system of proper consumer rights protection. The Ukhuwa of guild system, if we see in the paper, but I want to see the total quality management system through the AHI system or the Ahalic system. So the total quality management system or concept supports the teamwork rather than the work of the individual alone, and improves the system as a whole as it improves the workers within the system. So this was, some 500 or 600 years back, but nowadays we have different, institutions, different methodologies to adopt those things. A Ahalic system is a system which is capable of making up the infrastructure of the total quality management concept, or even going a little bit further. So Ahalic system, which is a human-centered, with its activities arranged for humans, and it is a system which does not permit humans to be viewed as its tools. So this is if we see from the altruistic approach, so it's totally different than the capitalist approach.
Yes,
the Hizba system we in detail discussed in the paper, but it is one of the most important system where there is a inspector of the marketplace, which is called Muhtasib, and he is responsible to see the check and balance in the commercial zone. One of the most important duties was to check the accuracy of weight and measures at the market. So this was one of the institutions which was it really helped to provide all these traits like the good price, good quality, and all other traits during the deals. I did not discuss about the Zavia, but that is also linked with the Ahalic system. So in the paper, I'll discuss. The protection of consumer and ensuring their rights are achieved, which includes the following. Number one is setting standards of products and services in Hizba system, as well as their production processes. Testing final products quality to ensure they meet the standards, and inspecting of weights, scale, and sales practices to ensure that there is no deception or fraud. Monitoring market prices to ensure they comply with the set limits. Inspecting production tools and procedures, as well as raw materials qualities. Testing the qualification of the producers and services providers to ensure that they are qualified enough to do the needed job. And then monitoring the market to make sure that no stockpiling, ihtikar, is in practice in that market, enforcing the laws and punishing the violators based on the evidences. So this system of saza and jaza, or the reward and punishment, was there. Agriculture-based, tax collection systems, Timar, Malik exam system, but I'll not talk about it here. I'll go for the ASSAM system, which is a game changer instrument. If you see, the state or the government authorities were setting aside an asset that was generating a predictable annual revenue stream. And these assets were owned and managed by the government, which only devotes a small percentage of its annual revenue to ASSAM securitization. So this was a game changer at that time. When they needed money, they issued ASSAM or SAM. The people get the funds and finance their projects or finance their army at that time. It was one of the innovative products at that time. And nowadays, if we see the modern ASSAM in our time is sukuk, or perpetual sukuk, or perpetual bonds. So we can say that this concept of sukuk was taken from ASSAM, which was innovative at that time. Nobody thought about it. So, Professor Murad talked about it. Murad Chizalchi talked about it in detail in some papers, but some of the significant things which he has mentioned there, ASSAM was something like it has no riba or sood or interest, and there was no risk shifting, but risk sharing, and there was capability to move the society to Al-Ghazali and Shatibi optimum of Maqasid al-Sharia. So these days, we can come up with the ASSAM with the kind of like sukuk or different things to get funds. Then banking system, it is discussed in detail in the paper, but I'll talk about it. That in 1888, the Ottomans established bank by the state. Ziraat Bankasi from finance to finance agriculture, which was based on Murabaha system to support the farmers. In the beginning of the 20th century, cash waqf capital became waqf bank or foundation bank before the First World War. Then charitable institutions, which was innovative at that time. There was normal waqf in the Abbasid time, but that was only for the properties. But cash waqf in the Ottomans were unique in a sense that cash was as a capital. So cash was a capital, and it was used in different Islamic modes to generate revenues, and that revenues were utilized for basic necessities of the public. BULUT, in one of his papers, he's talking about it, that waqf types operating in the Ottoman Empire was the cash waqfs, which hold cash money as capital. The cash waqfs operated in capital with various Islamic finance methods. Revenues obtained from various investments were used for the purpose of waqf. The cash waqfs met the vital necessities of society pertaining to education and religion in the period they were active in the Ottoman Empire. Another function of these waqf was to operate as a microcredit mechanism at that time to give financing to the people in the society, whether farmers or whether the small merchants. And then the Ottoman Public Debt Administration, the OPDA, became a vast an essential independent bureaucracy within the Ottoman bureaucracy, run by the creditors and its governing councils. It was packed with European government officials, including one representative, each from British, French, German, Austrian, Italian, Dutch, and the Ottoman creditors, and one representative from the Ottoman state. So this was also one of the significant institutions. One of my favorite thing is the Tahrir Daftarlari system. If we see, the Tahrir Daftarlari system was vital to the financial administration of those lands and were used for a variety of purposes. They served as an official register to establish legal claims to land, to assist the empire expected tax revenues, and to appropriate some of the revenues to the military and administrative officials as remuneration for their services. So the Mufassal Daftars were just like similar to the English Doomsday Book, but it was more in details. Like the Mufassal Daftars were more in details and wider in spatial and temporal coverage. The Mufassal Daftars contain such details, information about taxpayers and the economic activities in the Ottoman towns and villages, that it is difficult to imagine research on Ottoman history of the 15th and 16th centuries that does not in some way rely on the information. So the Tahrir Daftars are the gold mines of research for the historians of the Middle East and Eastern Europe, providing rich, detailed information about the names, numbers, and composition of tax-paying inhabitants and the amount of taxes due from productive resources in economic activities. Tanzimat, the last thing I've talked about it in detail in the paper, so I'm not going to that. New revenue for generating money, any new aspects of revenue. Not the first thing, like the pilgrims to Mecca also give rise every year to one of the largest payments in specie flown within the Ottoman Empire. So this was not like a revenue generation, but a flow of capital in the Ottoman Empire. From Egypt, from Misr to Hijaz, and from the Balkans to Hijaz. So it was like a flow of capital, which was generating more money and employment. And then forestry was also considered as a source of revenue illustrated by one of the scholars in 2012 in his paper that forestry was also used as a source of revenue. A few slides. Consumer protection in the Ottomans. So Qanunname Ihtisab Bursa, Qanunname Ihtisab Istanbul, Qanunname Ihtisab Edirne. The basic elements of the consumer protections were the approval of the regulation by the royal decree, awareness of the masses, and monitoring of the system, which I have discussed, and implementation like reward and punishment system.
Dr. Shah, only 4 minutes.
Okay, sir, I'm concluding. So consumer protection in the Ottoman era practices were the first consumer protection, first standard regulation, and first environmental protection law in the history was produced at that time. Developed between the year 1502 to 1507 by Maulana Yaraluja Mahiuddin, based on the order of Sultan Bayezid II, which was following the Ahlik principles in the products and services quality assurance, not just control. It was covering all stages of production and sale, from raw material till after sales, use of the product brands, the metal products to sustain quality of the products, narh, which is pricing based on justice for producers and consumers, market monitoring by muhtasib, penalties applied by muhtasib but based on judge approval. Penalties varied from defaming the producers and closing his shops up to physical punishment. And then faulty products were immediately in preventing of the ihtikar. Nar, which I've discussed here, I have talked about it in detail in the paper, and then ihtisab functions on hisba system I've talked about, which is, you know, any price and quality control, no exploitation for the consumers, no hoarding or ihtikar of the edibles, enabling the farmers by introducing system of agriculture tax farming, enabling and empowering the small merchants by giving funds via murabaha, cash waqf system, sharing the risk with the people rather selling the risk, ISLAM system, helping the poor and needy, no difference in Muslims and non-Muslims, via waqf system or sadaqah. Interfaith harmony in a religious tolerance in the Ottoman Empire, and system of rewards and punishment. Listen, learn. I have discussed it in detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahad. Your presentation was very good, especially ahilik and tımar systems, very important in history and nowadays. Thank you very much. Ben Türkçe bir iki şey ifade etmek isterim. Bilmiyorum.
Let me add a few things in Turkish. I'm not sure if you can listen to me via interpretation.